Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to talk about some physical signs that you can look for with your baby that will tell us that there's lots of tension in that nervous system. So often we see parents that come in, they tell us, oh, they're holding their head up, at 2 weeks, they're so strong. They're really progressing through. They're rolling over already. And we have to gently tell them that that's not necessarily it's not a good thing. And the reason that they're holding their head up, the reason that they're rolling over right away is because there's lots of nervous system tension and torque. And that can come from a different avenues. A lot that we see is obviously the birth process, where a lot of that fascial system gets twisted and torqued, and the baby looks like they're super strong, but really they just have a lot of tension. So today we're going to go through some things that you can look for with your baby, some signs and some symptoms to see if your baby has some nervous system tension or torque in their body. Chad Burkhart with the Wellery. So we see a lot of kids, and we have to tell a lot of parents that, okay, these are some things to look for, and we love educating them, and this is what we go through on a daily basis, some things that they can look for, because if we're not looking for it, we're not going to find it, and we want to make sure they're getting good information out there and not telling everyone that their baby's super strong and so more advanced than the neighbor's baby, when in reality that's not the case. So number one easy thing to look for is the fists. And so if the fists are really clenched a lot of the time, that is definitely a sign of some nervous system tension. If the thumb is inside and we're making that fist, that's even more significant, a sign of nervous system tension, usually brainstem area, upper cervical area. And with any of these, we always tell parents, I see snapshots. I see 10, 15 minutes at a time. So we always want to make sure, okay, I'm noticing this. Is that a thing? Look for this at home. Is this just a one thing that they're doing here, or is this a constant, or is it a pattern? So again, we see snapshots, so we educate parents on what to look for, so you can say, oh yeah, actually they've never done that, just this one time. Okay, well that's not a thing, but if we're seeing some of these patterns, and we want to be mindful of them. Another one is the head turned to one side, kind of their default. This is very, very common. And so if we're laying on our back and we're always turned to the left, okay, that is definitely a sign of some nervous system tension, some torque, and that's in utero positioning. That could be coming out of the birth canal. Another sign, if you're feeding and they prefer one side over the other, that could be not you, it could be them, where they're just not comfortable. If they're default and they feel more comfortable being this way, then they're not going to want to turn their head and take the bottle or take the breast that way either. So we talk about the fist. Talk about the head preference. That's a really easy one, especially in the car seat if they're laying back and they always have their head turned to one way. That's definitely a sign. When you're holding them, this is something we talk about a lot. Are they cooked noodle, nice and floppy? Okay. Are they an uncooked noodle? When you hold them, they should just sink right in. You should feel like you should really support them, right? An easy way to have this shown is like when you hand them off to somebody, and if you're doing this and they're nice and floppy, awesome. But if you're just doing this and they're one piece, okay, that's a lot of tension, right? There's so much tension in there that they're not just able to fall into you. They're goo, right? They don't have these muscles. They've just been introduced to gravity maybe weeks ago, right? So they don't have any of these things. And so they should be nice cooked noodle, not an uncooked stiff noodle. One thing that we show parents to do is an inversion. So inversion is a nice way to see if there's some tension, specifically kind of which side of the body in the nervous system there's tension. This is something that's completely safe to do. They're used to being upside down more than they are right side up, so they don't have that reflex that you and I have yet. And we teach parents how to do this, but if we invert them, okay, and if you look from the side, if there's a lot of arching, like through here, that's definitely a sign of some nervous system tension, some fascial tension. When you look at them and you're holding them in an inversion, they should just be straight like this. If they move around a little bit. Key too, if they have that one-sided head preference, see if they'll be able to unwind and then turn to the other side, or they're just really stuck in that one side. The arms should just gradually come down as well. So inversions is a nice way to see how they're doing. one of the most crucial things when we talk about babies is tummy time. And we stress that importance every day in here. We can really get a lot of great information from tummy time. And so I'll kind of show you some of those things too. So if we're in tummy time, this baby's a little stiff. They definitely got some nervous system tension. Okay, so if they're in tummy time, some of the that we talked about, like in the inversion, if they're here, they got their fists clenched, you can see that in tummy time. If they're like this and holding themselves up, especially at a few weeks old, that's a really big sign of nervous system tension. They should be here, they can maybe move around, maybe lift up a little bit and kind of get a little bit tired. But if they're just like that, that is a nervous system tension for sure. The other thing that we see too is parents say, oh, they're rolling over already. Okay, I'm like, oh, show me. So most of the time what happens when we're in tummy time, because of that head preference, because of that torque, all of a sudden that weight just goes like this. There's that twisting, that torquing going on, and then they just end up rolling over just because the head leads them that way. They're not rolling over from their hips. It's actually just the torque is just leading them out of tummy time. Another thing you can look for if they have that twisting, that torquing, that's very, very common, is that if you're looking like this, I'll show you here. If you're looking at their knees, and this one knee is carrying a lot of weight, and this knee is there's hardly even barely touching the floor, that's a sign of that twisting, that torquing too, where we're having a lot of weight here, and this is just up in the air. We actually had a baby this week that came in, and we were laying her on her back. She would turn her head to one side, and then her whole body would twist over here. So compensating for that torque, that tension. And then she would turn her head over this way, and then her lower half would turn that way. And we looked at her scans, and it was a perfect example of that kind of like corkscrew, that tension, where the scan showed a lot of stress here, came up, and then at one spot it switched over and then came up all the way up here. So it was down here, then up here. That's a perfect example we can see on the scans of that twisting, that torquing. I tell parents it's like wringing out a rag, right? So if you have a lot of tension pulling here and upper cervically, you have a lot of tension twisting there. What gets caught in the middle? A lot of times, mid-back. Well, esophagus, stomach. So we have a reflux, we have GERD, even some constipation issues. And it just makes sense, right? You're not going to be able to just have things come in and flow down nicely if your fascial system, your nervous system is twisted like this. You're not going to be able to poop very easily if you're all twisted up. So that's a lot. What we see too is that twisting, that torquing, upper one side and lower another side down below. So we teach parents, and we have some videos out there too of kind of what we do. We teach parents how to help unwind them, right? We show them some exercises to do. We show them some stretches to do along with the adjustments. And it's amazing. We had this week, and that's why I'm making this video this week right now, because we had some really cool changes with like literally 1 to 2 adjustments, parents doing their homework, and all of a sudden the dad even noticed like, oh yeah, I had like, usually I just hand them over to my wife, but I had to like really support them. They could really notice that baby changing from that uncooked noodle to that cooked noodle. And like I said before, if we're not looking for some of these things, we're not going to find them. And this is such a big deal because it's not like you and I, we have a tight muscle. This is such a big deal because they should eat, poop, and sleep. And if they're not doing some of those things, if they have some of the things that we talked about before, that's a direct line into their nervous system. That's a direct sign of nervous system tension. And when we have tension, we have stress in the nervous system, we're not going to poop as well, we're not going to sleep as well, we're not going to eat as well, and that stress, that torque, that tension will stay in there. And this is we talk about a lot with our perfect storm type kids, where we can trace some of this tension, some of these things back of, oh yeah, they didn't really love tummy time. Yeah, they just kind of rolled out. Oh, they held their head up really quick. Yeah, there's some reflux issues. And so this torque, this tension, this stress in the nervous system will stay in there if we don't get it out of there. And it's a lot easier to get them out when they're her age, and we can look for some of these things. So hopefully you've learned some things in the last few minutes, some things to look for with your baby. If you want to send us a video, send us a video. Be happy to look at them and see like, oh, yep, that's the thing. But I think, you know, this is really huge for parents to actually see some signs, some symptoms, what we're looking for too. So when you come in here, I'm showing you all of these things to look for. I don't want you to be overwhelmed by them. I just want you to be curious about them and to explore some of these things and say, oh, yeah. And the beautiful thing is when you look for some of these things and you can see some of the tension patterns, then you can see it improve. Then you can say, oh, we are making progress. They are sleeping a little bit better. They are enjoying tummy time longer. They are doing some of the stretches, some of the things that we have you do. They're enjoying those things. Things are easier. So you can have that confidence too that, yep, the things that you're doing at home, the things that we're doing are actually working. But we have to get that baseline. We have to show some of those things and those tension points with these babies. So hopefully, you know, we didn't put a damper on too many people like their baby isn't super advanced. There's just a lot of tension in these babies with the stress. We talk about the chemical, physical, and mental stress that's in the world today in the birth process. It's, I would say, rare that a baby comes out and we see them in their cooked noodle. There's a lot of tension, a lot of torque, a lot of stress in these babies. And we didn't even get to the oral stuff. We didn't get to the tongue tie stuff even. And that's another video. But if you have any questions, reach out, continue the conversation. Always happy to help in any way we can.